Hello and welcome back. My name is Crashy, and today we are going to be going over a general guide on how to play Gibraltar. Now, I originally started maining Wraith when I got into this game, but I quickly tried out Gibraltar, fell in love, and now I have about 90% of my game time and like 90% of my wins on Gibraltar with a little bit over 30 hours. So I'm not the the best player, definitely got to go to work, but I grind him when I can. So let's go ahead and start out with an ability breakdown. He has his passive ability, Gun Shield, aiming down sights, deploys a gun shield that blocks incoming fire. This is not the strongest ability on Gibraltar, but it's definitely something that makes a difference. So when you're in shotgun engagements, when you're fighting people, you don't want to forget not to ADS, because it really could be the difference between winning or losing a fight, or blocking a little bit of damage that helps you win that fight. His tactical ability is Drone of Protection. It's his big shield that throws down for 15 seconds, blocks all incoming fire, and you cannot shoot out of that. That's important as well to kind of know how to play around that. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. His ultimate ability is Defensive Bombardment, which is an interesting name for it, but you call in a concentrated mortar strike on a marked location. This ability is very strong. This is probably the reason I think he is one of a big meta choices for the game right now. I have wiped full teams, multiple teams, more than 3 players in a single ult with Gibraltar. So this is definitely an ability we're going to want to talk about. So let's go ahead and jump into his ideal loadout. The ideal loadout that I like to run on Gibraltar is a combination of the Peacekeeper with a ranged weapon. Now, that ranged weapon can vary, depends on who you're running with, what kind of guns they have, and ultimately the kind of style you want to have with Gibraltar. But to break down the Peacekeeper pick, it's essentially just how he pushes. With Gibraltar, you're going to find yourself in the front of most of engagements. I mean, you are kind of like the tank of the team, although he can get shredded just like anybody else. You're going to want to have that Peacekeeper. You're going to want a shotgun at minimum, but usually, in my opinion, the Peacekeeper is the better one. You're going to get the most damage. If you get the modification for it, the Skull Piercer, you're going to be able to do a lot of damage really fast, and it's going to be how he gets his aggressive plays in. Now, variations of the range, I don't mind running snipers on Gibraltar, like the Scout, like the Longbow. But if you are going to take a sniper, you have to make sure that you're using it appropriately for how the character plays. Get some damage in and then be ready to push. You can't really sit back as Gibraltar and not control the pace of the fight. And we'll talk about pacing the fight and things like that. So guns that I like to run with him are the Flat One, the R301 Carbine, and the Devotion, the Spitfire. Those are guns that I think are really good in his secondary weapon slot, with the Peacekeeper being his primary weapon, essentially. How to fight as a team. I want to talk about how to fight as a team with Gibraltar. Gibraltar is a really good leader. He is someone that is going to get a lot of value out of being close to his teammates. You don't really want to go off on your own too much, although there is a little bit of room for that, and we'll talk about how to kind of use him in fights and, in different ways. But more or less, you're going to want to be close to your team, because when you drop a shield down, you're usually saving yourself, but you can also be using that to give your teammates time to reshield and to block them from ultimates and block them from lethal damage as well. So don't do too much of going off on your own, but sometimes I will say there is an appropriate reason to. If you are winning a fight, if you are in the advantageous position, going off and flanking with Gibraltar is not a terrible idea. And the way that I do this mostly is I'll throw an offensive ultimate, and as the ultimate's coming down, you can't push into it. You don't want to take your own damage, so I'll flank wide. Now, this usually allows my teammates to either go into the ultimate themselves, or go straight into the fight themselves, or go the opposite direction to me, and we kind of create a phalanx or like a pinch. This is a really strong way of using Gibraltar, and I mean, when I throw the ultimate, if it's not being used in a defensive way or in a specific type of combo, which we'll talk about, then I'm usually trying to flank and go wide around it to either look for shots with my long range weapon or to get in close with my Peacekeeper. I think being a leader with Gibraltar is really important, and I talked about knowing the pacing with Gibraltar, and this is the part for me that is going to separate a decent person, or someone that thinks Gibraltar's good, and someone that really finds the value with Gibraltar. More often than not, I'm being the pusher. I'm the one that is finding the enemy teams and starting to get damage in, and I'm really controlling the pace of the fight. If we're back, if we're taking damage, I'm slow, I'm hiding behind cover, I'm using my shield, I'm reshielding, and I'm taking my time. When we find damage, when we find a knock, I'll be the first one to go. I'll be the first one to throw my dome offensively. I'll be the first one to, force them to shoot into my ADS shield as I'm walking forward. I'll be the one that really controls the pace of the fight, so that way the people that have other abilities on my team, the people that have, other types of weapons, long range weapons, close range weapons, whatever they need to do, whether it be get in close with their short range, get in, be able to sit back and come in behind me, will be able to do so. So be the leader with Gibraltar. Don't be afraid to take some damage. Don't be afraid to use your bubble for yourself when you have to, and to be ready to commit when it's most appropriate. Now, being aggressive with Gibraltar, again, it's about the situation. He's the type of character that I think is not just an offensive or a defensive pick. I feel like he's the perfect balance of both. You can sit back and snipe with Gibraltar. I like to use the longbow on him. I like to use the Kraber on him. But when you get that damage, it's important that you make a play. When you get the knock, it's important that you make a play. Now, when you need to be defensive with Gibraltar, it's important to know how to do so as well. Use your natural cover, use your dome, and, get your healing up, play with your team, be close to your lifeline or whoever you need to be close to for, certain situations. One of the most important things with Gibraltar is knowing when to use his ultimate. And using his ultimate is as simple as knowing whether or not you need to use it defensively as area of denial, or knowing whether or not you want to use it offensively as a finisher or looking for some lethal damage. So, two situations. Either you're being the aggressor, you're getting the damage in, and you want to throw the ultimate forward, so that way you can find some damage, get a knock, finish a player, and look for some kind of an aggressive push or a flank like we talked about earlier, or you're using the ultimate defensively. Now this is a really interesting tool. You have your back against the wall, the enemy team is pushing, maybe you have a knock. What you want to do is you want to throw down your dome and throw your ultimate literally on top of yourself. Your dome will full shield yourself from the ultimate. It'll give you time to get your teammates up, to reshield yourself, to pop the Phoenix kit, whatever you need to do while denying the space from your enemy and keeping them from a push. This can be an amazing reset. This can be an amazing finisher to a fight that was otherwise going to be lost. So don't be afraid to use that combo. So overall, guys, that's pretty much it for my general guide on how to use Gibraltar. I think the major takeaways are knowing your pacing, knowing when to be aggressive, knowing when to be defensive, not being afraid to use your ultimate, knowing how to use the ultimate, really kind of dancing in and out and around your shield, knowing how to use the shield properly, getting in close, throwing it ahead, using it defensively, throwing it on yourself so you can reshield, and knowing how to take advantage of his passive. Although, again, it's not the strongest thing in the world, you definitely don't want to never use it because it is a part of his arsenal. So Gibraltar, again, to me, S tier pick, one of the best characters in the game, and I just absolutely love playing him. So get out there, throw your mortars, throw your shields for your teammates, and be a legend. Alright, so thanks for checking out this video. I'll see you guys on the next one.
Just a piece